All right, you've made it back for episode 12 of the Retro Game Club podcast. I am Rob, and with me is Hugh.
How's it going?
Not bad. It's been a while since we recorded an episode, it feels like.
Yeah, I think with the holidays and stuff, it was kind of a bad time to record. I had a bunch of people over on Memorial Day weekend, and my house was kind of complete chaos.
And then you get to clean it all afterwards.
Yeah, I get to clean it all, get to... I don't want to start every episode complaining about Midwest weather, but like it hasn't stopped. It's like at some point we moved to Seattle apparently, and nobody told me. So I've been dealing with a lot of like flooding and other issues because I don't think it's gone 12 hours without raining here.
Yeah, my sister and her husband were visiting, and also his brother, so my brother-in-law's brother, who works for a suburb of Chicago, and he had to hightail it out of here because a water pump broke. So,
yeah. Well, that's your Midwest weather update for this episode.
Yeah, every episode. We always promise it. You know, I'm sure I'll say my key phrases, and you'll talk about Midwest gaming classics somehow in this episode.
Actually, I don't know. I'm looking at the agenda. I might not get it in this time. Oh wait, yeah, I will. I see our topic. Never mind.
Nice, that's awesome. But yeah, you know, last episode I think I was talking about modding my Vita. It is working pretty good, other than I could not get Intellivision games working on it, which was a problem for me for this episode. I also started trying to mod my 3DS with... So I have the Sky 3DS card, which is like playing 3DS ROMs, right? I tried to get RetroArch on there. I failed miserably. And I also have an R4 card, which you're supposed to be able to play, you know, NES games and stuff like that on your DS or 3DS. And I did not have much success with that. On my old DS, I had great success with it, but I guess I'm not as savvy as I used to be, so I'll dive back into that sometime.
So I got to go back in time here a little bit. How do you play Intellivision games on the Vita anyways? Because I don't think you have enough buttons. Does the emulator have some sort of touchscreen replacement for the pad?
I have no idea, because the second I hit load game, the whole thing crashes.
Okay.
So there's that.
Because even like the most basic Intellivision games, things like Snafu that don't use any buttons, like you don't have to press a button to play the game, just it's all D-pad or disc, I guess. Mm-hmm. You still have to have the numeric pad just to get the game started.
Yeah. So I've yet to emulate Intellivision. So I ended up watching a video of our Game Club game that you chose this week. But, yeah, I will update everyone. And that's another, if any listeners out there, please email us and let us know if you are able to emulate with the gamepad, with GameCAD compatibility.
Yeah, or you fire up a Windows 95 virtual machine and you play the Intellivision Lives collection.
Ooh, nice.
Which is a great way to play it. Or
nice. Yeah, so how do they do it on there?
Well, it's a computer, right? So they have the numpad. And
oh yeah, you have the keyboard.
Really,
yeah.
My favorite way to play Intellivision games now is on the mini Intellivision console that came out like 5 years ago, because it has like authentic feeling controllers. No, you can't expand it. You can't like put an SD card in it and put more games on it, so you're stuck with the built-in selection. But it has a really good built-in selection. Obviously missing a lot of third-party stuff, but it's still a very good library.
I wonder if the Amico will come with the back catalog.
Yeah, I hope it does. Certainly the things owned by Intellivision Company, whatever their legal entity is called now.
Yeah.
Certainly they can publish their own games. The third-party stuff is just always, there's a lot of Activision titles, of course. And Activision made some great games in that era. Magic had some really, really great Intellivision games. Like Parker Brothers, was a game developer back then, or at least a game license publisher. That's the word I'm looking for. Like, I don't know if Parker Brothers had coders or if they just were a publisher. But, I mean, they produced a lot of good stuff, too.
Before I forget, Some housekeeping. Episode names. It will now be just our game club games. So current and future listeners can just look at episode titles of our back catalog and decide if they want to listen to it, if they're interested in playing those games with us.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just a quick question to listeners, stuff I won't read online. Just, how's all this sounding? I think I have it dialed in, but I'm currently mixing in headphones. So, yeah, if it's too sibilant, if it's too,
What was
if
that
there's
word?
something annoying.
What was that word?
Sibilant, too many S's,
Oh.
kind of thing. Let me know.
Did you get like one of those word of the day calendars? Like,
I used to be an audio engineer.
okay, all right.
Yeah, so yeah, that's all I got. What have you been up to?
I'm trying not to start a new game, and this. I don't know if you've been in a holding pattern like this before, but about a week ago, I finished. This is not particularly retro. I finished Trails of Cold Steel, which is a Falcom game. It was just republished on PlayStation 4, and the sequel comes out in the U.S. In like 2 days. 2 days from the time we're recording this, so it may already be out by the time you listen to it, or most likely will. And so during that 2 week time window, I'm like, well, I don't want to start another RPG. I don't want to start anything that's going to take longer than 2 weeks because I really want to pick up the series where it left off. So I've been playing a lot of stuff on the NES Classic. Now, I know, like, there's a lot of different NES emulators and so on. The NES Classic is just a really great system. I mean, it has there's some kind of minor usability issues, like you have to, walk across the room to hit the reset button, and it doesn't have wireless controllers and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it plays these games really well, and there's just no messing around with it. So I've been playing a few games, but one of the problems is that, like, games I used to be really good at, I'm suddenly not very good at. Like, I was going to do a run through of Super Mario 2, and this is a game, like, I don't know, whenever NES emulators were a new thing, I could pretty much beat that game in, like, 12 minutes flat, maybe.
Yeah, with the warp,
With warp stuff. Yeah, I could just play through that game, not take a hit, blast through it in no time. And now I'm dying in, like, the dumbest spots. So I don't know if it's that, like, I'm older and my reflexes are worse, or if, like, years of alcohol abuse have, like, killed some part of my brain responsible for manipulating a D-pad. Like, I don't know. But I'm just not good at Super Mario 2 anymore. So.
Or is the latency just that much different now?
No, I doubt it. I doubt, because the other thing I've been playing a little bit was NES Remix. And that's on the 3DS. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm having some similar issues with some of the games there too. So NES Remix is a great game. I'm actually thinking about picking it as a game club game in the future, because even though it was made in the last, like, 10 years, it's a collection of old games with, a little bit of a twist on them.
I hope you do, because it's something I picked up briefly, because for some reason I just thought it was a collection. And when it wasn't, I just put it away. But then it's been referenced here a while. I've had buddies talk about it. It's just one of those games I want to pick up again.
Yeah. Well, it's absolutely worth playing. I think it's a great game. And then I've been doing
impressive programming too.
Yeah, I've been doing some Genesis programming. So I'm trying to. There's this game demo I've been tinkering around with for a while, and I just sort of set myself a date of, like, either finish the thing this year or move on to something else. Basically, move on to another project at the end of the year. And I'd rather not leave it unfinished. So my goal is just to finish this demo up by the end of 2019, and then I don't know what I'm going to take on after that. It'll be some other crazy retro programming project. I just haven't decided what yet. But one of the last features I wanted to add was saving and loading, right? So, like, to battery backup. And I really thought that was going to be hard and, like, take a month, but I got the whole thing done in, like, 2 evenings after work.
That's great.
I mean, I had to ignore my kids a lot to make that happen. But it was basically like 2 3-hour sessions I got it done in. And the actual saving and loading is actually really, really easy. And it was more like creating the menus to do saving and loading that took more time. Like, it was 1 hour or less of making saving and loading work, and then, 3 or 4 hours of making menus that were functional.
Huh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was actually surprised how easy it was. Now again, that I've only tested on emulators. I didn't put that. I have tested my demo on an actual Genesis, and it does work. I haven't tried the saving and loading because I just don't know how that works. Like I have an EverDrive, and I'm assuming it works okay, but I don't know. I might even go in and add like an autosave feature because that seems pretty easy to do too. Like every time you pass a certain point, it just saves, whether you want it to or not.
When this is done, how are you putting it on GitHub? Like, are you releasing the code?
The code's
and the
on
ROM,
all the code's on GitHub already.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's all everything. I keep it on GitHub because one, I like to share the code, but two, I'm always nervous about hard drive crashes. So.
Oh yeah.
So everything is. I usually, most of the time I work on this is on the weekend, usually in the mornings before my kids are up. So I get most of it. I usually do check-ins like, sometime on Sunday.
Yeah.
And also it's my way of like encouraging anybody who's working on like programming a retro system, please put your code out there. Like you're not going to get rich on your idea in all likelihood. Like this sounds terrible. Like there was a Kickstarter I backed last year for a game called Tanglewood, which is a really great Sega Genesis game. It's a little bit of a kind of an Echo the Dolphin feel to it.
Yeah.
Love, absolutely, great game, great visuals. The developer just posted something out on his Kickstarter page saying he had to indefinitely suspend development of the Dreamcast version. So he had a tier where it's like you can get it for Dreamcast. But he said he had to suspend that. And he refunded the Dreamcast. Anyone who backed it, backed the Dreamcast version, they got a refund. But basically he said, like, the game went way over budget, and he's had to take on a bunch of contract work just to catch up with the debt accumulated from developing this game.
Jeez.
So, like, he made a game that is 100 times better than anything I can develop. And so if you're doing a homebrew project, like a homebrew Genesis game or any other retro system, I'm going to tell you right now, there is almost no chance you're going to cash in on this. So just put your code on GitHub. Like, help other people learn how to develop for these systems.
Yeah, and then it's great for your resume. Use it for that. If you're a coder.
Yes.
If, you drive a truck, probably not great for your resume, but still cool.
Unless you want to be a coder. Now, that's assuming that headhunters are looking for assembly developers on GitHub.
True.
And I think maybe other than like maintaining the nuclear system, I don't know. I know I mention all the time, I have like these horrible nightmares that like all of our nuclear arsenals is like running on like some 68,000 processor. Like that's all like some Amiga somewhere in an underground silo is actually controlling the nuclear supply in the United States.
Yep, and the floppy will glitch and everything ends.
And then in this fictional world I've created, one day when I'm like 85, I'll be like the last living person who knows 68,000 assembler, and I'll have to go in. It'll be like the Clint Eastwood movie with the asteroid, only with assembly. All right, let's get on to some news.
Yeah.
Cotton, a kind of, I would call it obscure shooter, maybe. I don't know. Do you think Cotton's a mainstream game?
Only amongst people listening to this podcast.
Fair enough.
Or Turbo Duo owners.
Yes.
Like myself. I had a Turbo Duo back in the day, and this was the last game at Babbage's I bought.
Jeez, and I hope you didn't open it, because you could retire on it if it's still sealed.
Exactly, yeah. I was actually annoyed buying it because I wanted something I had heard of. And, but yeah, it's a great game. It's fun. It's not easy. If you haven't played it, it's a cute 'em up side shooter. And there were many, I want to say at least 3 sequels. But I think I like the first one the best.
Now, how is this related to KO Flying Squadron? Because they visually remind me of maybe they're both just cute 'em ups and that's why. But is there any like relation between those two games?
Who's the developer of the other game?
I have no idea off the top of my head.
I'm sure someone will write us, and that would not be a bad thing to write about.
Yeah, this is a thing I should have Googled before. But I didn't. It just occurred to me now that they're very similar games.
But yeah, Cotton, Fantastic Night Dreams on the Switch. And I'll probably pick this up. That'd be a fun game to have portably. The Ouya store
Yeah.
is officially closed or closing.
So this is the other what I've been doing this week. So Razer, I guess, bought out Ouya company or the rights to the Ouya or whatever. And they're no longer going to support the store. So I went and downloaded every emulator that I didn't have previously, and then any game that was like actually totally free. You know, the Ouya is kind of the system where like there's always a demo for games, but they aren't necessarily free. So I just went and grabbed just filled it with every totally free game that they had. Because I will of course have time to play all of them.
Yeah. Is there anything good that was free that we would have heard of?
No, there's a lot of like little indie games. There was, of course, I don't have the name in front of me. There was like this indie kind of visual novel game that looks pretty cool. And then there's like one developer who just did like all these kind of like Code Jam, little miniature pixelated RPGs. He must have like 10 of them on. Well, maybe not 10, but he's got many on there. And those look all right. I mean, they're the game you'll play for 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And then in terms of emulators, I did not know that Scum VM was on Ouya. So I grabbed that. I think I had every other emulator I cared about. There's like a Dreamcast. There's some emulators on there that are not really working. Like you can maybe play a demo on them or boot them, and that's about it. But I'm kind of interested in the Scum VM one to see how that works. I still like the Ouya as an emulation box. I actually, because it's less configuration than a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
So for most systems, now it doesn't have as many systems as RetroPie. It has, maybe less than half the systems you can play on RetroPie. But it has the things I want to play. And again, like no messing around. Works with the PlayStation 3 controller, so you can stick a USB drive in with tons and tons of TurboGrafx CD games or whatever.
We're gonna have to come back to this after this closes because I want to know what happens with games that try to phone home, games that try to access the store or something at lunch.
Yeah.
Will they just fail? And I'm sure that Ouya doesn't really care because they're going to be gone. And there's one guy in Chicago that this is affecting, and that's about it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people probably use it as an emulation box.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess is that there's an awful lot of these hooked up just to play emulators. And I'm actually very happy with it just for that. I mean, I know the whole like indie revolution thing didn't really pan out with it.
Well, we're looking at, I hope the holding company that owns the Atari brand name is reading this article because their future is being spelled out in front of them, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, that's assuming they ever launch anything. The Ouya actually came out when they said it was going to come out.
That is correct.
Over on ArcadeHeroes.com, they are doing a roundup of new physical real arcades that opened up in the past couple months. So, and they have photos. Some of them are still kind of maybe have a little bit of a still under construction look to them. Others look pretty good. So let's see. They got a place called Drop Zone in Janesville, Wisconsin. Place called Putters in Waco, Texas. That looks, it's clearly a barcade. It's more bar than arcade, I think. I'm only going to talk about the ones that have pictures. A new place in Branson that looks like it is not finished yet. A place in Norfolk called the Circuit Social that I think looks pretty finished. Seems to have a pretty good selection. I'm going to scroll down to the one that I think looks coolest, though. Is the Retro Arcade in Warrington, UK.
I was going to call that one out, too. Is that a bunker?
It sure looks like a bunker. Yeah, like a military or airplane bunker that was converted to an arcade. Hopefully there's some ventilation in there. Otherwise it's going to be pretty warm, even though it's in the UK. But, I mean, I'm seeing half a dozen pinball games, a bunch of sit-down racers, seating areas so you can just kind of hang out and talk. This is pretty impressive looking.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they have a Facebook page. I don't know if I'll be able to see the Facebook page.
It looks pretty big too, or long.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's an
a lot of space. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an airplane hangar filled with arcade games.
Yeah.
And according to their Facebook page, they might serve drinks too.
I think that's every place in the UK.
Yeah, maybe not the churches, but I've only been to London once, and yeah, probably. Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool to see all these still going. And what this means is arcade machines are still being preserved. They're not all being turned into multicades.
Yeah, well, I think now people are maybe actually seeking them out because the barcade format, I think, is pretty successful right now.
I wonder how long that'll last. I guess until our generation can't play games anymore.
Yeah, probably. And then whatever the generation after us is into, we'll take. I guess they already have vape bars or whatever the kids are into these days. I haven't seen a place that's a vape bar / arcade yet, like a vape-cade or something. That might not work though. I don't know.
Don't give anyone ideas.
All right, new Atari 2600 game, Knabber Rob. This is a homebrew game, but it's being sold commercially for 45 euros. I was trying to do the math in my head there. And it's a sort of adventure-inspired game.
Yeah, you play a bat who is trying to get all the treasure for his sorcerer. And so I'm assuming 45 euros means you get a cart with this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot of money.
You get instructions in a box also. And they have 89 of them still. But it's very clearly, I won't call it a ROM hack of adventure, but very clearly, like, heavily inspired by adventure.
It's a tribute too. How about that? Yeah, I would definitely check this out. I don't know if I would pay 45 euros. But, I would pay to play it,
Yeah, it's kind of looks all right. Let's see. Oh, wait. PC Engine HDMI mod coming in August.
I want this. So, if you go to the website in our show notes, it's a company called Columbus Circle, and this page is in Japanese, so you got to use, Chrome's Translate. And it is 3,500 yen for an HDMI out for the back of PC Engine. I'm assuming it's the same pinout as TurboGrafx, maybe?
Must be, yeah. So that's pretty cheap as far as these boards go. That's like right now it's $32.32.
I would love one that just does everything. Like, give me the RAM to save my games. Give me... What else would we... I guess there's the AV part.
Yeah, and I think this is a no soldering gizmo too, because it says it connects into the expansion port on the TurboGrafx.
On the PC Engine.
Engine,
Yeah, but there's no case for it. So at the bottom, the disclaimers translated English, you will get a static shock if you try to touch it.
Yeah.
So
so don't do that.
yeah.
But yeah, it gives you HDMI out and looks like S-video out also.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I got my Turbo Duo modded for S-video out, and it looks awesome. But yeah, really, really cool. I don't have a PC Engine. My Turbo Duo is Japanese, but I don't. Other than the controller port size, I don't know the differences between the standard PC Engine and the standard TurboGrafx, if there is any. But yeah, pretty cool.
So another cool indie game. This one I actually will probably give some money to. A new NES game called What Remains. And it's an adventure game set in 1986. So it's obviously set in a year that the NES was gaining some traction. And I'm not sure what style of gameplay it is. I mean, it's definitely not a LucasArts adventure. That's not right.
But the graphics kind of seem inspired by LucasArts or Sierra Online.
Yeah.
Early.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. They have a cartridge. They're only making 80 cartridges, and the cartridges are 80 euros. But then on their the main site, you have to click on the link because it's kind of a long URL. They have a name your own price for the ROM.
Oh, I like that. Kind of the Radiohead approach.
Yes. Yeah. So you can. I'm seeing there's a limit here. The game is free, but the developer accepts your support by letting you pay what you think is fair for the game.
I love that. I wish more people would do that. I am definitely going to download this, and I'm definitely going to throw them a few bucks.
Yeah, I think this is worth. It looks like it's worth more than a few dollars. It looks like a full blown game, and I like the art style a lot.
Totally. I mean, I'm going to send this guy more than $5 because I'm one of the people that truly believes that the 99-cent or $1.99 app price, like iPhone apps and stuff, I think that kind of killed a lot of software developers because it's not enough money for something you spend so much time on.
Right, but that's also why now they all do the game is free, but unless you want to grind for 100 hours, you pay us $4.99.
Yeah.
Which I'm just not ever going to do. I can't imagine enjoying that. I don't know.
No.
I'd rather just wait until they release here's the full game with everything edition for $40 than
the game of the year edition.
Yeah, whatever they call it. Well, I was just talking about the Trails of Cold Steel game that I'm eagerly awaiting the sequel to. And what they did there is that was previously a PS3 and Vita game, and it had some DLC, not pay to win stuff, but just pay to boost your levels kind of stuff. It helps you mostly at the end. There's an enemy in the game that if you fight it and you win, every character in your group gains 1 level, regardless of how many experience points you need to gain another level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And there's a thing where you can spawn 20 of them with the DLC, and it's not really handy at the beginning. You can beat the last boss without doing this, but if you kind of like grinding, it's really handy to get the last 20 levels. So when you're up to level 79, going from level 79 to 99 will take you the rest of your life. Well, not literally. It depends how long you plan to live, I guess.
Well, it's like Ys. The last level
takes a lot longer. Right? The last level takes as much as all the previous levels before it. It seems.
Yeah.
But
sometimes you have to.
Yeah, and you don't have to. These games, they're all kind of winnable around level 50. But if you want to play with really overpowered characters, then you spend a few bucks. And then there's costumes and other stuff. But these re-releases for PS4, they just bundle everything on there. There's no DLC. It's just, you're going to pay us $50 and you're going to get every piece of content the game has ever had.
Yeah, I like that. I have a lot of those DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever is on PS4 and PS3. So what's this one called again? What Remains?
What Remains, yeah. And I just realized, looking at this title screen, this is probably more Stranger Things inspired than anything else. Because the title screen looks a little bit like the Stranger Things logo.
Huh. Interesting.
Another free game, or new game. New 2600 game. Night Guy in Low Res World. That's KNIGHT. Night Guy. A game developed using Atari Basic. And I believe this one is totally free. It's just a little demo.
Are you able to watch the video on this?
I have tried
not.
on my phone. I have
phone.
to click through the link to see the video. Because something about cookies. The video, when you click through, though, this game looks amazing. I'm not gonna lie. This looks like an extremely well-made Atari 2600 game.
Oh wow, yeah.
It
I mean, this is almost like Game Boy.
it is, yeah. I mean, the colors, the animation. It's one of these games where basically it's a side-scrolling platformer, and you're jumping between rooms, and each room has like a set of difficult jumps and in challenges you have to make. What's the style of game? There's some name for this. But it's basically you do it one room at a time, and there's just these crazy challenges. And yeah, this just looks amazing. It's just a great quality game. It looks like.
Very cool. Yeah, yeah. Each level gets a little bit more complex.
Yeah, I think it looks like a lot of fun, and I'm gonna throw it on my At Games Atari clone, a little portable one with the SD card. As soon as we're done recording.
If this game was out when the 2600 was out, this would be a best-selling game.
Oh yeah,
easily.
yeah, no doubt. I kind of wonder if people would get it because it's similar. Like I said, it's similar to a style of game that you see a lot of indie developers do today. So I'm not I think it would be a big hit just because it looks so amazing. But I'm just kind of wondering if people wouldn't get it.
I don't know. They had stuff like Load Runner, and that's not far off from this.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Night Guy is the name of the game.
Yes.
In low res world.
Yes, and on total opposite end of the graphical spectrum, Quake II ray tracing.
Yeah, so this is one of my news items. I think Quake 2 is old enough to be on this show, right?
It came out in '97, I believe.
Yeah, I have it. It's one of the games I have on my Silicon Graphics O2 machine. I used to have like a LAN in my basement with that and an old iMac and a Pentium 2 and stuff. And Quake 2 is what we played. And if anyone listening to this show hasn't seen this video of Quake 2 with ray tracing, it is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some split screens between what it used to look like and what it looks like with this. And it's still Quake 2. It still has all the goods and bads, and but it just looks nicer.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, but the enemy still falls in 3 different frames when you shoot them instead of it doesn't fix anything like that.
So let's see here. I have 3 different versions of Quake 2.
So what do you have?
Well, the ones you'd expect: PC, PlayStation, and N64. Which I think is maybe all the home version. Well, there's probably some version that someone's gonna be like, oh well, in South Korea they released something on the Super 8 can. How can you not know about that?
Yeah. But this works on Windows and Linux.
Yeah, because I think the Quake engine, I believe, well, it it uses a different engine than the original Quake. Or it uses a fork or whatever. It's a successor of the Quake engine. I believe that stuff's all pretty
it's a different engine, yeah. But yeah, very cool. I don't know if I think my graphics cards will support this, at least at like 15 frames a second. So maybe I'll check it out. Quake 2 is one of the few first-person shooters I actually enjoy playing. Mm-hmm. Nothing against first-person shooters. I'm just so bad at them that it's not fun for me.
Yeah, I understand.
The next news item was one of mine also. Yes, you can write awesome games in just 10 lines of BASIC. And so this is an annual contest where you are supposed to write a game in 10 lines of BASIC code. And some of these just blow my mind. Like, there's one called Where's My Cheese? And it's a first-person maze runner in 10 lines of BASIC.
Mm-hmm.
And it does say that you're allowed to use tools to kind of minify your BASIC into 10 lines.
Mm-hmm.
But still, just incredible. So if you are a BASIC programmer and would like to show off your skills, submit your application now. Submit your game now.
Yeah, this is like Beagle Brothers kind of stuff. They were like I don't know if they were literal brothers or not, or it was the name of a company, but it was a company that did Apple II software, and they used to have like all these like 2-liner demos of just these crazy. They weren't really games; they were more like graphical kind of things, and then they'd have like game collections done with very few lines of code. I mean, they did some really really neat stuff.
Yeah. I don't really care to get back into BASIC too much to do this, but I can't wait to see what people submit this year.
And almost last up, Contra Anniversary. Happy anniversary, Contra. So new collection coming out. They've confirmed 7 games with a couple region-specific games. And it's what you would expect from a Contra collection. Contra, Super Contra, Contra NES version. First Contra was arcade version. Operation C, Contra 3, and Contra Hardcore. And then...
Are you going to get this?
Absolutely not.
No?
Well,
Well, you don't have a Switch.
yeah, I will eventually own a Switch. I just haven't really... This is not a selling point for a Switch for me. But I have Contra Super C, Operation C, Contra 3, and possibly Contra Hardcore already. Arcade Contra is the only thing I don't physically own, I think, in this whole collection.
But do you really need to?
Yeah. And I don't play Contra very often.
Oh, and this is PlayStation 4, Switch, Xbox One, and Steam.
Yeah.
I almost picked a Contra game this week. I didn't, but it almost made it there.
Yeah, I'm not like...
Super C is one I've always wanted to check out more.
Yeah, I'm just not super nostalgic about the Contra series. It just has never been a big, like... They're fun and kind of small doses for me, but it's never been something I'm really heavily into.
In middle school, it was a big kind of weekend or sleepover game,
Yeah, I think the code at this point, the Contra code, is more memorable than the game for most people.
Oh, yeah. Now it's a hip thing. There's like T-shirts with it on it.
Yeah.
But it's good to see Konami doing stuff that's not pachinko.
It is, yeah. Well, again, they own a lot of IP, and if they could just, find someone competent to republish their existing IP.
The Hudson Soft collection is what we need.
Yeah. Well, Hudson did a lot of good stuff. What gets difficult with Hudson, though, is they did so much, like, more like publishing or contract for hire stuff. Mm-hmm. So, like, you won't get Ys 4. You won't get the PC Engine version of Ys 4 from Konami, because they probably don't have the rights to ever distribute that again. Because Hudson was basically what happened is Falcom came up with the idea for Ys 4, the storyline, and the soundtrack, but they didn't want to write the game themselves. I don't really know if they were in some sort of like financial peril at the time, or they were working on another project. I don't know the whole backstory. I just know they didn't want to write the game themselves, so they hired 2 different companies to write 2 different versions of the game, using their story and their music. And Hudson was one of those 2. I think they did the far better one.
Was the other one on... What system was the other one on? Genesis?
Super Nintendo. Super Famicom, I'm sorry.
Really?
Yeah. I'll grab a copy off my East shelf right here. So I have a physical copy of this.
Oh, yeah, Mask of the Sun, that's right. That's the not good version.
Yeah, well, and it's good.
It's
just the not as good version.
It's usually at the bottom of best of East list.
Yeah, I think it's still a good game by itself, but the PC Engine version is not just like the best version, it's like the best game on that whole system. We should probably feature that sometime.
It is great, yeah.
And then last up, just a real quickie. Before Netscape, the forgotten web browsers of the early 1990s. This is just the kind of little dorky thing I always like looking at. And this is like pre-Netscape web browsers. I am not sure I've used any of these. Have you?
Yes. So, good. I thought you were going to beat me at this game.
No. I've used Lynx, which I don't see on here.
So, I use Mosaic. And I still use links all the time. I think they mention it on page 2. There's no picture, but it's referenced somewhere.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, for listeners who might not know, yeah, Mosaic was like the first big web browser, and then Mozilla came out to be Mosaic Killer, and Lynx is a command line web browser, which is pretty impressive. So if you're at the Linux command line and you just need to reference something quickly, using Lynx is really handy. Or if you don't know how to use wget, then using Lynx is pretty handy too.
Yeah, I used Lynx actually for something work related not long ago. Now I can't remember what. Oh, this is going to drive me insane. Why was I using Lynx? It must have been like, oh, I have to get some application onto this Linux server, and I can't think of another way to download it. Like, it must be something.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I need
App
the
get
link,
links,
and I don't know if
and
the
then
W
links
had to be
to the...
something like that.
Yep.
I'm not smart enough.
I've done that many times. This cello one seems familiar. I think that was the one made in Japan. Maybe not.
I did at one point use like this really short-lived browser that Sun Microsystems put out. They like when Java was fairly new, they had made like a Java web browser. Have you ever seen this thing?
No.
It's not. It's kind of a cool project. I don't know if they ever released the code. Like it might be useful for that, but it was not a particularly great web browser. It had kind of a neat look to it, but it was like it felt like Internet Sun must have just had this cool idea and started working on it.
I used to use Pale Moon for a while. It's a really lightweight web browser. It's really modern. I think it's based off Firefox. But, I mean, for me, I use Google for everything, so now I just use Chrome. It's so simple. But, yeah, it's cool looking back to see how archaic the web was for so long.
All right, so want to hop on to our featured topic?
Yeah, this one was yours.
Yeah, this is right when we first started this podcast. We were brainstorming ideas, and I put a link out to an article over on retrorgb.com. I think we probably referenced this site a couple of times, where they have an article about playing different options for playing Game Boy games on television. And there's a lot of them. And they have like a really detailed comparison of all the different ways you can go about doing this. And there's a lot of options I hadn't even heard of.
And to be clear, this is not emulating on Raspberry Pi. This is legit ways that you could buy something to play games on your TV.
Yeah. And there's really, like, the thing that surprised me is that one of the options is modding the Game Boy to put a TV out into it.
I know.
Which I guess is, it's an obvious idea, right? I mean, mod the Game Boy, and you already have the controller built in, so you aren't doing any emulation. You're playing it on the real hardware. They do say that particular thing is kind of hard to do. There's one that's a little bit more modding called the GBA transverter that they link to too, and that actually requires you to take the Game Boy apart in, like, this is Game Boy Advance now, original model Game Boy Advance, not the SP, and like you have to install like not even like a jumper card, like a big something that's roughly the size of the circuit board itself in the Game Boy Advance. And I guess that gets you a pretty authentic experience. Everything else they talk about are things I prefer. They talk, of course, about things like Virtual Console. Fine. They talk about Retron 5, which is also, you're putting a card in and it's an emulator. But then they talk about, my favorite option, which is the GameCube Game Boy player, because that plays everything.
I'd never heard of the Wide Boy 64 before
I
this.
think I have, and I just kind of block it from my memory. It's a third-party, unlicensed adapter to play Game Boy games on, like it says, on Nintendo 64. I guess, is it Game Boy Advance only, or is it everything?
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, it's a wretchedly ugly piece of hardware.
I love it. That's why I love it. It's like if you took a N64 cartridge and stretched it so it was twice as long.
But then they go through and they show you like resolution differences, like when you're playing it at 720p or 240p or just different resolution modes. And some of these options look really good, others look not great.
Blurry. Yeah.
This Wide Boy kind of surprisingly looks awesome. Like
Yeah.
it produces a really, really great picture. My obligatory Midwest Gaming Classic reference will be that they're one of the things on exhibit this last year was a place called I want to get the name right. Hold on. It's a company called Arcade 816. So they're a new arcade opening up in kind of the South Chicago suburbs. I think it's Lisle. They're opening in. And their premise is that they have made arcade cabinets running console systems. And the arcade cabinets are styled like the console they're running. They're really awesome machines. I actually think they could make more money selling these cabinets than running an arcade. I think if they sold like the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo kit that they made, I mean, I would easily, that's easy, $300 at least I would pay for that. But they have a Game Boy one, where you're playing Game Boy on a stand-up arcade cabinet that is shaped like a giant Game Boy. It's amazing. But behind the scenes, that is using the Game Boy player. That's the internals of that. And it's a great.
So what kind of screen is it?
They're just using like they look like arcade monitors. Which I guess you would want to use CRT for all these old systems.
Interesting.
And then they also talk about another device I'd never heard of here called Super Retro Advance. That again, this is weird to me. So you plug it into a Super Nintendo, and with it you can play Game Boy Advance games, but not Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, which is bizarre because you have the Super Game Boy, like that capability exists, or maybe they didn't bother because that exists. And it doesn't use the Super Nintendo's AV out. It has its own AV out.
It's so strange.
Yeah, the picture looks pretty good. So I'm just wondering if this is like... I just wonder like what part of the Super Nintendo is it using?
Yeah, just like the power and like... Yeah, does it just use the 12 volts?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is it just using it as a palette? Is it using some part of the CPU? Like, they're not the same CPU, so...
Game Boy Advance and Game Boy?
Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. I thought they were the same CPU.
I don't think so. I mean, I know, like, there's some games... It feels very Super Nintendo-like. No, it's not even close. It's using... Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know this off the top of my head. The ARM 7 TDMI. It's a Texas Instruments ARM chip. So that is not really close to the Super Nintendo.
No, not at all.
So that's why I'm like, I have no clue what it's doing. You could just... They could make a model you plug into your toaster like that. Like... I don't get it. So of all these, do you have sorry if I missed it, but do you have a preferred option for Game Boy on television?
I haven't ever played Game Boy Advance on television, but if I would, I think it would be with the Wide Boy 64. It just looks so goofy.
It does look goofy. Yes. I don't know what these things sell for.
And for me, the look of... I don't know why. I think it's because I used to have a Z64 Mr. Backup, but the Nintendo 64 just looks like it. It was built for adapters and stuff like this.
Well, yeah, it has a lot of like weird... It has 4 controller ports. It has the memory card port in the front or whatever, the expansion port, whatever.
The bottom thing,
Bottom thing,
yeah, the
yeah.
bottom adapter, yeah.
So, like, in terms of like why you'd want to play Game Boy games on the TV, I know for some people it'll be like the Pokemon games, the big RPGs. There's a lot of there's Final Fantasy games, of course, on Game Boy, but I like it for the Zelda games.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zelda's best played on TV, and you have between Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color, you've got 4 really, really solid Zelda games that are all just more fun to play on TV.
And Game Boy Advance scales up really well on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's other stuff. There's like Phantasy Star Collection on Game Boy Advance. If it's actually might be cheaper. Well, right now, probably buying a Genesis Collection is the cheapest way to get that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's there's a lot of great Game Boy Advance games. I played Final Fantasy VI that way, on the TV.
Yeah, I mean that Rock and Roll Racing we did a few weeks ago. The Game Boy Advance, I was emulating, so it was on TV. The Game Boy Advance version looked better than the SNES version.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it actually was, but to me it looked better on a big screen. So there you go.
All right. So we want to talk about our Game Club games?
Yeah, you want to go first since I already admitted to only watching videos of it?
Mine's a really simple game. I picked a very, very simple game, and that was Shark for the Intellivision, which, of course, unfortunately now, if you punch into Google, you actually get Baby Shark.
Yep.
So
yeah, my kid loves Baby Shark, so I twitched when I saw that.
My kids are too old for that, thankfully.
Just don't.
Yeah. It's a short game. It's a single screen game where you play a small fish, and you're in. I guess I won't say a pond because there's sharks and lobsters, and the goal is you swim around and you can eat fish that are smaller than you. But if you get hit by any fish bigger than you, you die. And after you score a certain number of points, and of course the bigger the fish you eat, the more points you get, you grow a little bit until you reach a maximum size. No matter what size you are, the lobster that goes along the bottom of the screen can always get you. I guess lobsters are invincible.
Can you get bigger than the shark and eat the shark?
You cannot, but you can kill the shark any size. So when the shark, every 2 minutes or something into the game, maybe less, the shark appears, and the shark, it plays it's kind of like a scary sound effect, and the shark goes back and forth a few times and then swims off. The key is you can bite the shark in the tail, and if you bite the shark in the tail enough times, the shark dies, but then another shark comes back. It's a never-ending game. There's no end to. There's not like you win the shark.
Okay, I was hoping there was an end where you could get big enough to eat the shark.
No, you reach sort of a peak size. And then, all you can do is just keep playing for points at that, from then on. But it's like a lot of television games of the era. Like, it just you start playing for points. The game doesn't end. You just, Space Hawk. You just keep playing forever. There's no, you can fight the Space Hawk, but he's just going to come back and you have to fight more.
Maybe that'll be my programming project, to mod Shark. Give it an ending.
Yeah. So after you kill a shark...
Maybe even a story, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was kind of a quickly produced game because it's not very, very long. And
it's a good-looking
game. Yeah. Now, it's expensive because it's a very rare game. It was a very limited run. I guess Mattel didn't really think this game was going to sell, so they didn't print that many copies. And I don't know. This is one of the few Intellivision games I don't think I have a physical copy of. But it's on a lot of Intellivision collections. Mm-hmm. So that's about it. The real only tip I have for Shark is don't ever stand by the edge of the screen. Because you get no warning when fish appear on the edge of the screen. So that's mostly when you'll die. Is if you're trying to get something on the edge of the screen and then suddenly shark.
Yeah, and I saw the video. I watched 2 different videos. It seemed like the successful games were people moving up and down a lot.
Yeah.
Because the fish seem to move in diagonal. Up and down diagonally. So, yeah. Looked pretty cool.
yeah, so that's my pick. I definitely enjoyed the game a lot. I think I always thought of it as being kind of like a jokey kids game, and playing it later on in life, I realized no, this is actually really fun, and it's kind of a neat way to just blow off steam for a couple minutes.
You think it was inspired by Jaws? It was
Yeah,
probably released
it had to
around
be.
the same time.
Yeah, it had to be. I mean, well, Jaws came out probably like in '79 or something, right?
That sounds about
Yeah,
right.
but by the time Shark came out, we might have been up to Jaws 3D already.
Jaws was 75.
Oh wow! So
wow.
I'm gonna go with we were definitely up to Jaws 3D by then. I remember when Jaws 3D came out, because like I saw this article this week. Oh, this is off topic, but like it was something like Pizza Hut revamps personal pan pizza formula for the first time in 40 years. And I'm like, I remember when that thing launched. Oh. And it wasn't 40 years ago. It like launched in 82 or something.
Well, Shark was 82, so
Yeah, so you can get your very first ever personal pan pizza and then go home and play Shark. That sounds like a great night. I can't think of a better night I've ever had.
yeah, that actually sounds like a perfect evening. Anything else to say?
It's not a very deep game, so that's about all I got.
Yeah, but it looked fun. I will eventually, if someone wants to write in and help me play in television games, emulated, please do so I can play this. My game of the week was Castlevania IV, the Castlevania on Super Nintendo. You are Belmont again, and you're whipping undead things. And yeah, I mean, you may have more to say about Shark than I do about Castlevania IV. It's a good-looking game. It's a Mode 7 game. Beautiful soundtrack. It just feels like the next evolution after 3. You swing, that's kind of, I think that's the Mode 7 effect. I never played this game before, or if I did, I forgot. It was one of those that just got by me, and yeah, it was a fun game. I could see why it's on many best of lists. But again, it didn't feel new to me. It didn't feel groundbreaking enough for me to go back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one I did not play back in the day. I was never like really big into Castlevania. I've been trying to get into the series a little bit more. And when I got the Super Nintendo Classic Mini, this was one of the first games I started up because I wanted to try something new. Right? I played most of the games on that collection. I hadn't really played Super Castlevania IV. And I was surprised. I played it again this week too. And I really liked it a lot more than most of the other Castlevania games. I mean, I don't know if I would say it's my favorite. It's kind of between that and like, I'm always sort of weirdly nostalgic for PC Engine games. So like the PC Engine version is still
the Rano.
Yeah, it's still kind of my favorite. Except I got a lot further in the Super Nintendo one. Like I just found like it was easier to play. There was a not as many cheap deaths. I mean, I think part of the reason I didn't like Castlevania is because of the cheap deaths.
This gets that right, definitely. The bats that fly around, in the first game, they felt impossible to hit to me. In this, it was doable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, in terms of, I don't know how long the game is. I didn't complete it, but I felt like I got pretty deep into this.
Yeah, and like the bosses, like the very first boss, I found like if you have the knife weapon, they're really, really, really easy. So the only thing, the only like cheap thing that really happens in the game is like when you get knocked into a weapon you don't want.
Yes, that happened.
That was really the worst for me. Is I would have a weapon that I knew I needed for the next boss, but then I get hit and I now have a terrible weapon. Ghosts and Goblins has that same kind of problem, or Ghouls and Ghosts, whatever you want to call it.
But I mean, this game starts out where you. At first, I hated this game because it starts out you have to go behind the gate, and it's only to show the effect that the Super Nintendo can do this.
Yeah.
And kind of establish that playground, and You have to be.
I actually really like that because it's something Revenge of Shinobi does for basically the same reason. Like, we're just showing off that we have multiple layers. I thought that was kind of fun.
I know, but well, the thing is, I saw the door to go back there. I knew to go back there, but for some reason, the first 2 or 3 times I tried, you push up, the door wasn't opening. The gate wasn't opening. So I was like, what, am I, an idiot? So I just, I was like, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to go there. So I tried to jump across the ravine, and, I die instantly. And then, next game through, I went through. I'm like, I knew, I don't know why. I guess I wasn't standing in the exact right spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of games did stuff like that where, I mean, even Super Mario World, they do that, but it just felt a little bit better. In those. Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with this game. I highly recommend it. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have played this.
Yeah.
I just don't think I'm going to go back to it. I think I'm going to play the other games on the Castlevania collection on the Switch, and now I'm probably going to have to fire up Rondo of Blood, because you got me thinking about that. It's been forever since I've played that.
I usually play it, like around Halloween. It's just sort of one of my like go-to games around that time of year. And the problem is it is really cheap and you die a lot.
I think my Castlevania game is Symphony of the Night. I just the difference between Castlevania 3 and Castlevania 4, and the difference between Castlevania 4 and Symphony of the Night, like, the Symphony of the Night one is much different. I mean, that really established this is a new system, and we could do so much with this. And I was just in awe of that game when it came out. This one, I mean, I know I'm playing it possibly for the first time now in 2019. It's a good game.
Yeah.
Not much more to say about it. All right, let's do listener feedback. And St. John writes, we talked about Linux quite a bit. Yeah, we're both Linux guys, even though I've switched to the dark side of Microsoft for most. For the record, I switched to Windows 10 because it has Linux subsystem. Anyway.
Now I have a different thing. Like, in the real world, I have to use Microsoft Visio a lot, and that does not run on anything except Windows. So I basically have a Windows machine at my real world office, not the place I'm recording right now, just to run Visio. It's off.
It's a Visio box.
Yeah. I just don't have a choice.
There's wine for that, but that's a whole other episode.
I don't think Visio. It's a pretty big.
You don't want to change.
Yeah, it's one of those things you have to install like 3/4 of the Microsoft Office library to do anything in it. So.
Yeah. But anyway, St. John writing that we talk about Linux a lot, and he has 2 Linux boxes running with Ubuntu Studio 1904. The weaker one uses XFCE interface, and the other one uses Kubuntu, which is the KDE user interface, or Windows Manager, I should say. He tried Deepin, which I have not tried yet, to do some weird permissions work. He couldn't pull it off. That's okay, because he likes KDE. What's your Windows Manager of?
I use Unity. I actually
flavor?
have the latest version of Ubuntu. I always keep the latest LTS version of Ubuntu.
So Unity,
but no, they switched over to GNOME.
Oh, that's right. I
hate GNOME. If they make it like where you can't go back to Unity, I will have to switch, because I've never seen a version of GNOME. Sorry to any GNOME developers listening to this show. Probably none of them are. I just have a really hard time using GNOME, and I don't know why.
So would you go to Kubuntu?
No, you can actually install Unity on.
No, what? Oh, but I mean when they stop.
Yeah, I don't know. Someone is still maintaining Unity, so I'm just going to keep using that until it stops working.
Oh, yeah. Well, he brings up Golden Axe and talks about comparing different systems, and he has the Master System version that he played once or twice. Just like Altered Beast, it looks absolutely incredible for a NES era system, but in fact, much closer to a Sega Genesis game than it is a
Yeah,
NES
you're
game.
saying the Master System version of Golden Axe looks more like a Genesis game than an NES game, and I actually agree with that. I think it's a really good looking port.
Yeah, in the PC Engine version, it looks more like an Amstrad that someone kicked and threw out a window. But other than it being a bit slow pace and the imprecise controls, limited music and sound effects, that's what keeps him from coming back to it. Or wait, sorry. Did not exactly keep him from coming back to it. He played it a lot on Genesis, though. In fact, the Genesis is so close to the arcade version that there's no meaningful differences. The Genesis version just feels arcade perfect. Kind of same with NES ports of the same era. If you have them side by side, you'll be shocked how big the differences are. But if you're just playing it right there with your hazy memory of what you saw in the arcade, it's spot on. And yeah, I totally agree. That's how I feel about the Nintendo Versus games for sure. Other than Contra, that game is so oddly different that I do not like that arcade version. He never played the PC Engine version of Golden Axe, or Altered Beast. Which did we already talk about this?
Beast.
I don't think
he's kind of changing gears a little bit and mentioning how the Altered Beast version looks on PCE, which I have not played it. It's actually not a real expensive game to import, so I probably should get it. And then sort of comparing the PC Engine version of the game to the Genesis version.
I know, that's what I was saying. I didn't realize there even was a version.
Yeah, I think there might be both a CD and cart version of Altered Beast in Japan on the PC Engine.
Oh, man.
And I, like I said, I haven't imported it, but I think it's an under $20 game to import. I don't think it's real expensive.
I'm going to have to play
I know
this.
Golden Axe was really cheap to import, and I was kind of surprised. Like, I wonder why Golden Axe is so cheap on PC Engine. and I got it, and I was like, oh, that's why. Because you have to be a super...
It literally almost ruins video games for you. That's how bad it is.
It's a very, very, very bad... It almost likens back to the old rumors that... Coleco did the ports of Donkey Kong back in the old days because Nintendo didn't do their own home ports. And that Coleco intentionally sabotaged the other home ports of Donkey Kong to make their system look better. It's almost like when Sega was going to release Golden Axe on the TurboGrafx, they hired like the worst group of developers they could find on Earth to outsource the port to. Like, if they got Rebecca Heineman or someone to do the port, it would have been a good port.
She did the port for Donkey Kong ColecoVision.
I call her name out because, like, that's not her entire career, but a good portion of her career is doing ports.
The best,
and they're
ports.
all great ports. I'm hard pressed, other than Doom on 3DO, to think of a port that is not good of hers.
But she talks about that. They restricted her into their subset, the way they do things, the way they code. She had it working much better and much different, but that never got released.
Yeah, I think I
really strange.
Probably.
But anyway,
I think I might own Doom on 3DO. Where is it? I have it somewhere here. Go ahead.
But anyway, he has great respect for the PC versions. And I lost my spot since we trailed off here.
Hey, I found my copy of Doom for 3DO. There we go. He's calling out that some of the technical differences. The PC versions of these games typically have lower resolution, so you're playing with like much smaller sprites, and the soundtrack, rather than chiptune, is on disc. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. I think actually in the case of Altered Beast and Golden Axe, it's worse, and he knows that too. And then says the color depth is actually pretty good. Again, talking about Altered Beast, and it has a lot of the effects, like the special effects that you find in the arcade version. In that he mentions he hasn't played Golden Axe on PC, but has heard it's a completely different story, which is in fact true.
Yeah. And the PC Engine versions, by contrast, have lower resolution, 256 by 224 versus
It'd be
320 by 224. And so the sprites are a bit tinier and all that. And
let's see, Majors writes in, he is very jealous of your new pinball. So
yeah, it's fun.
Congratulations. We talked about 3DO Street Fighter, did we? I guess we did. Probably I did. He mentions the that particular re-release, the ST version, Super Turbo version on 3DO, was the first one to get a home port. And a friend of his bought the 3DO and the arcade-style joysticks just to play that at home. And that he played that all the way up until a new version. There was a re-release on PlayStation 2 with arcade sticks.
3DO was a great system, though. There's some other games you could get on there that were fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, I say for one-on-one fighters, it didn't have Mortal Kombat. Like, we can get that out of the way. And it had some terrible stuff like Shadow and Way of the Warrior. But it had some good, it had a really good Samurai Showdown port. And I thought, I think Majors is right here, like, best until the PlayStation 2 version of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
I mean, Gex was great. Dragon Lair, I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Cannon Fodder. Yeah, a lot of good games.
Let's see. What else here? SMS in Japan. Razer was released for the Sega Master System under the name Argos no Jujuken.
I think you got that right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Probably not. Neo Geo Mini Clear. Why, of course, they're making another variant. It's all to milk collectors, which is that's my abbreviation of what you said here. Like, that's what it's here for. Yeah, you're just milking collectors. Talks a little bit about importing games, and like was mentioned about cheaper costs for Famicom imports. The same was true for TurboGrafx, and sometimes he considers selling off U.S. stuff so we can get the PC Engine variants, because the prices of U.S. games are going so are so absurd right now that you can sell a game and get the same one later.
Sounds like a plan
and
to
then
me.
Master System, it's actually kind of the opposite, where like a lot of games are way more expensive in Japan than they are in the US. And he recommends he has the Japanese Master System. There's actually a converter to play the American games on it. I actually, for some reason, thought the system was region free, but obviously not.
I thought that too.
Yeah, they look very different. Like the consoles themselves are shaped very differently, so I guess they must be different. Cartridge slots also. In terms of Mahjong versus Shanghai,
he was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was talking about the kind of Four Corners game. Is that what Shanghai is?
Oh, wait a second.
It's a 4-player Chinese tile Mahjong game.
Yeah, so Mahjong, again, I'm going back to Laundry and Bourbon, is a game that's a stage play. It's very popular at colleges for some reason. It's a 4-player game with a bunch of tiles. I don't know the point. And then Shanghai is like, I guess, the solitaire version, because I just think of all the games that came out called Shanghai. Now, there's also games called Mahjong that seem to just be single-player Shanghai, so that's where I'm confused by this all.
So what it comes down to is we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. He makes a joke about visual novels and dating sims, because we must have referenced that, and how you can import boxes of them for about $1 a piece, if that's your thing.
Still not worth it.
Yeah. I mean, PC Engine, I can assure you, like, you can buy lots and lots of visual novels for next to nothing. Because, again, if you can't read Japanese, like, who wants them? Shark gives another plug to the Intellivision areas, which we did last week. In terms of our most previous week's Game Club games, he was a big fan of Virtual Racing. He said it had a rubber banding effect, apparently in the arcade on the 2-player mode. Which, yeah, I guess I sort of vaguely remember. I didn't play it in the arcade very much. He thinks it's a very novel game for the Genesis, and he wants to confirm that it does work on the CDX, but he does not know about the Model 2 and 3. It does work on the Model 2 because that obviously was the prevalent version of the system when it was released. The 3 I don't know because that is completely different, but it's really stripped down hardware. He doesn't think it was worth the original MSRP though, of course, which was like $80 to $100, which that is true. And then he gives a lot of love for Last Blade. So
it is a beautiful, really snappy, fun game.
Yeah, his main guy is Ho.
Yeah, that's who I was playing
Hio.
too. Yeah.
The giant dude in the pink outfit, because of his silly mannerisms and play style. All right, I don't think I tried him. And thanks for the show. And then gives a shout out to an event that unfortunately we skipped a week recording. So if you're listening to this in 50 or 49 weeks from the time we recorded it, there's a convention called Animazement that I think is an annual show in the Raleigh area.
Yep, and Majors brings his cabinets there.
Yes. All right.
So yes, thank you, Majors, for that email. And Shinto writes, he's been meaning to write for a while, but he believes the listener was asking about hooking up a Raspberry Pi to VGA. Yeah, I forget if that was us or a listener. I mean, I can't even remember last week now, but yeah, he links to a pretty inexpensive adapter to do that, which is HDMI to VGA.
So while we're talking about Shinto, I want to give a shout out to the Atari Jaguar Game by Game podcast. I think they're up to 28 episodes. 27. Flashback, The Quest for Identity was the last one. I was pretty close nice. For going off memory. And it comes out kind of bi-monthly is the schedule. You know, kind of every other month. He does an episode. They're long episodes. They're good for like if you got a long commute. You know, they definitely will. They all go over an hour, and a lot of detail, a lot of listener feedback. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about these games. I mean, things that you just, weird facts and stuff about the games that you probably didn't know.
Very cool.
And then last up, Jess writes about Castlevania IV. He wanted to share, he says, well, he was talking about Castlevania, he's going to talk about Castlevania Bloodlines also. So growing up, his family had the Genesis, but not the Super Nintendo, so of course he's biased towards Bloodlines. And he remembers he bought it like the first time he saw it. And it's one of the few games he can beat without cheats or guides. Nice. And while they didn't have a Super Nintendo, he was still a subscriber to Nintendo Power. And he got to read all about Castlevania IV. I was very impressed with it, but did not get to play it until much, much later. It sounds like not till after he was married, years and years later, unless he married at age 12 or something. He found the controls to be a little more sluggish and clunky than what he was used to with Bloodlines, or at least that was his perception. But he's been playing it recently. One of his goals is to get to later parts of the game, like Stage 4, so we can see some of the graphical effects that are featured in the Super Nintendo, in the Nintendo Power articles, like the rotating rooms. But as of right now, he is stuck on the Dancing Ghost boss. I did not get to the Dancing Ghost boss, but it sounds difficult.
And the rotating rooms, yeah, I'm correct. The rotating rooms would be mode 7. Yeah, I still really haven't played that one, Bloodlines, yet, but I mean, I bought that new collection, so It's on my list.
I briefly owned a copy of Bloodlines. I just stopped at some random garage sale years ago, and they had a bunch of Genesis games for $1 a piece, and I didn't really even look at what they had. I'm just like, here's $10, I'll take, your box of Genesis games. And there's a Bloodlines in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not really a big Castlevania fan, but it's kind of neat to have. And then one day I saw what it was going for on eBay, and I'm like, let's get out of here, man. This is like a year's worth of eBay game purchases for me, because I don't buy like really expensive stuff. So I'm like,
I feel like I own that cart too. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, maybe I should have held on to it, but I was just like, there's a lot of other games I want to buy right now, and this is going to pay for many of them. So there you go.
Yeah.
And it's not like I wasn't hard up for money or anything. It was just like, I was in one of those moments where it's like, I'm never going to play this game. Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
I was just going through that recently too, because I'm running out of space again. So I'm like I played, I started Xenoblade Chronicles on DS, and I said, this just isn't for me. But yet I still have a Xenoblade Chronicles for like Wii U and shrink wrapped. So that's going to go. Like all these, like a bunch of stuff like that's going to go. Stuff I might be able to get $1 or $2 for. All right.
Well, what game are you going to pick next?
I was actually thinking about calling an audible and changing, but I'm going to stick with my first idea here. Dr. Mario. When I put this on the notes, you mentioned that some other podcasts have recently talked about Dr. Mario.
So the listeners know I emailed Hugh as if like he was an oracle or something, because Retronauts brought up Dr. Mario, and then it was another podcast I listened to. I forget what it is. They brought it up. It was 3 podcasts in 1 week. I don't know if they were all very new episodes, but they were all within a few weeks of each other. But I listened to them all last week. And for some reason, I was driving home, and I just thought, I wonder if Hugh's going to pick Dr. Mario. And then the next day, I look on our show notes, and it's there. And I just felt like a little creeped out.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Like, I'm backlogged on Retronauts. So, like, if they've talked about it in the past 2 months, I haven't heard it. I'm just backlogged. Mm-hmm. It's just one of the of the shows I'm backlogged on. It's pretty high. Not that I don't enjoy the show. It's just like there's other shows I just listen. Like there's a couple shows that I always listen to their episodes first, and it just is behind. I do have some.
And these other few shows I was listening to, I know you don't listen to. You know.
Yeah, I subscribe to like 10 podcasts, something like that. Mm-hmm. Actually, geez, more than that. Oh yeah, because I got stuff on here like Inside Trader Joe's, which they only publish like once a week. Or once a month, sorry. That's the podcast where they talk about Trader Joe's. It's great because there's no ads, because the entire podcast itself is an ad for Trader Joe's.
That's really a strange one.
What?
Haven't heard of that one.
Do you have Trader Joe's in your area?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I'm going with a game I played once and wasn't a huge fan of, but a lot of people love, so I'm going to give it some love. King of Monsters 2, the next thing on Neo Geo. I don't think it's on any other collections. I'm picking it because I really want to see the new King Kong, I want to see the new Godzilla movie. So
with the Stranger Things lead is on there, right?
Yes. So this will kind of get me there, but I did want to bring up. We did have a few people say they would like some more DOS or Windows 3.1.1 games on this podcast, and I do also. I'm going to start picking a few more of those, but I'm trying to get them all set up in my launch box first. So please give me a few more weeks on that, and I'm sure, Hugh, you could use a few more weeks on that. I'll give you warning first, because some of those take a while to get into and or install. Yeah,
I will probably... The reason I picked Dr. Mario is just because it's a game I play when I'm kind of like... It's a game I play when I'm sort of like overworked, if that makes sense. And it's just been kind of a busy week. I'm not complaining about anything. It's just been a really busy month. Not so much week, but like 1 to 2 month period, really busy. So it's kind of like a good game because like it helps you tune out everything else going on in your life. Especially when you play it on like a fast level. So it's really good for that. But now that I was talking about Scum VM, maybe I have a lot of games that are compatible with Scum VM. And maybe I will try one of those out in the near future, so I can talk about a DOS game.
Cool. Yeah. And so yeah, King of Monsters 2, the next thing, and Dr. Mario, and yeah, please write in at email@retrogameclub.net. That is email@retrogameclub.net, and yeah, play the game with us, and look us up on Facebook. None of that really gets onto the show, but we kind of give some updates here and there on Facebook. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so thanks for listening.